Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, BCAM is presenting a program for your enrichment. This evening, we are going to be speaking with two of the Republican candidates who are running for the state Senate seat for the Norfolk, Plymouth, and Bristol district. So, and we would like you to listen carefully to these two Republicans, and if you are inclined to vote on September 14th. First of all, I'd like to introduce Richard Livingston, who is from Milton, and Bob Burr, who is from Canton. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Sonny.
Good evening. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to let you start off with a 3-minute presentation telling us why you are the best candidate for the state Senate seat. So we'll start with Bob.
Thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Braintree Cable, for having us here this evening. I'm a selectman from the town of Canton. I've been serving on the board now for 7 years. And I think that I'm in this race for 3 reasons. First, to return Massachusetts to a two-party system of government, because I believe that that's the only way that we're going to get fair debate and deliberation on the laws that impact the citizens of this district. Second is to reduce the cost and size of the state government. And third, and most important to me, after serving for 7 years on the Board of Selectmen, it was a return of power back to the local communities. For the last 7 years, I've seen unfunded mandates, cuts in local aid, lottery diversions, and a whole host of other burdens that local communities are having to deal with that frankly is making it very difficult for them to run their operations. And that's why I'm motivated to run in this race. Over the last several weeks, I've been going door to door in most of the communities here in this district, and I look forward to meeting the residents here and engaging in this conversation here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Sonny, thank you very much. Braintree Cable, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And ladies and gentlemen in Braintree, I want to take this opportunity to thank you very, very much for your hospitality and your greetings when I've gone door to door, when I've stood out in the street corner, in the various functions and meetings that I've been through, the concerts and everything. You've been so kind to me, and I deeply appreciate that. My name is Richard Livingston. I'm running for the state Senate. I'm 57 years old. I was born and raised in the Neponset section of the city of Boston. I have resided in Milton for the last 25 years. I'm one of 9 children. I have 2 children of my own, and I have been actively involved in the community for over 38 years. My community involvement started when I was 14 years old in Dorchester, and some of you in Braintree who have moved from the Dorchester section to Braintree will know Tinny Ann Beach. It was closed due to pollution. Being one of 9, I was 18 before I went to Castle Island. So we needed to get that beach open for the residents. So I had a sit-in, and I was able to bring a congressman, mayor, city councilors, state reps, state senators, commissioners of the MDC, and we were able to see that that beach was cleaned up and open. That has piqued my interest in community involvement and constituent service. From that point, when I was in school, I was the president of my student council and have been actively involved in a lot of student government. From there, I was elected to the Eastern Regional Advisory Board for students throughout the whole eastern part of New England. There, again, my community involvement, my constituent service to help my classmates and stuff. I then have been employed with the Transportation Authority. There, I've been with them for 26 years. My co-workers saw in me that type of compassion and passion for my fellow workers, so they elected me to various positions all the way up to president of a union, of which I served for 41 months and negotiated 2 contracts successively. So that being said, my objective is to run for the state Senate for 2 reasons. My main reason is to restore that office to a constituent service, a citizen's legislature. I'm the average Joe. The naysayers don't give me an opportunity whatsoever of getting elected, but I've proved them wrong. I've been able to get nominated on the Republican ballot, and I've worked very, very hard since March. I've worn a hole in 2 pair of shoes because I haven't stopped. With the help of my family, my friends, and new people that I've met throughout the 10 towns, I will represent all 10 towns in this district, not just one. So I ask for your consideration, I ask for your vote, and I look forward to presenting to you the questions and answers that are going to be asked tonight. Again, many thanks, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to start the questioning now. What unique qualifications do you bring to this Senate race? And we're going to start with, we'll start with Bob.
Okay, Sonny. First, 2 things. My entire working career, I've been in the private sector, successful in the financial services industry. I think that's a unique qualification in this time in history in this country where politicians should have some experience in the private sector. I was the oldest of 6 kids. Grew up in the town of Canton, graduated from Canton High School, and worked my way through Boston College selling low-cost health insurance to small business owners. So I know what it's like to actually build a business, to employ people, to go through difficult times, to make critical cost-cutting decisions, and to move on to a successful day. Second, and as important, is my service in public service. I started off as president of Canton Little League for 5 years, and many people from Braintree may know me from the baseball diamond. Where we were very successful in building several Little League fields. I also served for a period of time on the Conservation Commission. But I've been serving now for the last 7 years on the Board of Selectmen in the town of Canton. And I've been elected 3 times. And I think my experience in dealing with the unions, in negotiating $1 million per year worth of health care savings, and all the activities associated with selectmen make me uniquely qualified to run for this position. And I think that there's no a better position really to see the positive and negative impact of all laws that are passed at the federal, state, and local level than having to enforce them at the local level. And that's what makes me uniquely qualified.
Thank you. Richard?
Yes. What makes me uniquely qualified for this position is I'm 57 years old. I've worked in both the private and the public sector. And one thing that's a major unique qualification is when elected, I will be a full-time state senator. I will retire from my present job. I will serve the people of this district with passion, tenacity, and I will work very, very hard to prove to you that I am one of the best statesmen you'll ever elect to the state senate here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Another thing is I served on the town meeting in Milton for 17 years as a town meeting representative, and I've seen the many myriad of things that have come before us and legislation that I've helped pass. So by my vote, I was only 1 vote, but I worked very, very hard and I was very, very active in my community. So that's another thing that makes me uniquely qualified for this position.
Okay, thank you. And this time we're going to let Richard start. Jobs are critical to this economy. How will you work to create new and lasting jobs?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question because it was very difficult going through all 10 times to try and get people optimistic about job creation when 300,000 Massachusetts residents are unemployed. What I would like to do is I'd like to file legislation that would create a combination revolving account and a clawback. Now, my aim is by creating this, we could be able to build permanent film studios which bring about permanent jobs and good wages. Now, how this work is this way. As a town meeting member, throughout the towns, you're familiar with revolving accounts, whether it be for your ball field, and it has a set aside. And if you're familiar with the Securities and Exchange Commission, you have clawbacks. Once a company makes X amount, you're able to get back what you've put in. So what I would like to do is take care in Massachusetts. What we've done in the last 10 years is create 20 movies. In the past 2 years, 5 movies grossed $465 million. Now the legislature is stopping the movie incentive tax credit because they don't feel we're getting enough return for our money. So what I'd like to do is set it up so that we have this type of legislation where if a movie comes in, we give them the tax credit, the initial capital to produce the movie. Paramount produces the movie. Once the movie is produced and they hit a certain gross, we're able to claw back that money that we've invested in it. Once that money's set back in this revolving account, we then can allow MGM to produce a movie. But now the taxpayer isn't on the hook because the money is set aside. And by doing this, you're going to create permanent studios, permanent jobs, and permanently good wages for people to work. With 300,000 residents in the Commonwealth unemployed, we need to create jobs.
Thank you. Same question to you?
I actually have a different opinion. Rather than actually subsidizing particular sectors of business, I think we've had a lot of that over the past several years, especially with the federal stimulus money. I'd like to see a reduction in the cost of state government, plain and simple, and a reduction in taxes, and more of an emphasis put back on local community control, power over their own communities. I'd like to work with the next governor to be able to pass regulations in the legislature that are necessary to reduce the size of the state government so that the private sector can actually begin to establish more jobs. There's only 3 areas where resources can be spent: government spending, consumer spending, and business investment. And what we're having right now is a large pocket of government spending, and that's putting a drag on consumer spending, which in turn is putting a drag on business investment. So I think we need to simply do what other towns are doing. My town's doing it. Certainly everyone in the private sector is doing that, and that is making reductions that are necessary in this environment so that the economy can expand.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, Bob, I'm going to start you. What is your opinion of the new federal education standards, and what, if anything, would you change?
Well, you know, it's somewhat shocking to me that of everything that the legislature had on their plate this summer to get passed before they ended this season, that this particular initiative would be so popular. Massachusetts has been by far higher level of education standards than the rest of the nation. So to jump on board with the federal education standard doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. However, there was an incentive associated with grants, so I can see that as a short-term attraction. But I'm worried about what it will mean for the MCAS standards going forward and the quality education in this state.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Thank you very much. I feel the Massachusetts legislature allowed the best in the nation's educational system. We are #1 in the nation and #3 in the world after we've spent $90 billion with the MCAS over the last 17 years to produce the best educational system in the world. We took a $250 million grant from the federal government to go to the federal standards. What, if anything, would you have changed? Nothing. I would not go with the federal standards because we haven't even got to read the legislation yet because it isn't completely finished. I feel that the federal educational standards are more mandates without money. I look at the federal government and I say to myself, well, how did Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do with the housing industry? How did the Securities and Exchange Commission do with Bernie Madoff in the Ponzi scheme? And now we want to give the federal government the education of our children? Not on your life. I think it was a foolish move, and I think we should change that. When I get to the state legislature, I'm going to push very, very hard because local governments should have control of their local government and their community and their educational systems.
Okay, thank you. All right, Richard, we're going to start with you on this one. Okay, the Clean Energy Bill would put a deposit on plastic water bottles. Do you support expanding the bottle bill?
Yes, I have no problem with expanding the bottle bill, provided it's a minimum allowable deposit without gouging the consumer. And the objective to increase, it could reduce public works trash removal, cleanup costs, and I feel that the limit on just plastic with no consideration of glass reduces the total effectiveness of the whole idea. But the fact that it would bring in some revenue, if it's done properly without gouging the consumer, I have no problem with it.
Thank you. Bob?
In many areas, Richard and I agree. This one I don't agree. I've actually signed the petition for Citizens for Limited Taxation, saying that if I get elected that I will not increase taxes. Well, I think bottle bills and any other type of fees associated with any service is indeed a tax, and I don't think in this economy we want to be increasing taxes.
Okay. Thank you. Bob, I'm going to give you this question. Please give us your thoughts regarding how illegal immigrants should be handled.
You know, that's interesting. We get asked this question every time, and one of the key words in the question is illegal. It's very difficult in my mind to support something that is considered to be illegal. So we need to find a way to allow people legally to come to this country, because after all, we're either grandsons or great-grandsons of immigrants. But we can't be providing services for those that are not paying into the system that are here illegally. In my door-to-door campaign, I've run into many contractors that are losing jobs to illegal immigrants, and it's very painful in this economy. So there absolutely has to be a zero tolerance with regard to services for illegal immigrants, but I think there's a way with which we can streamline the process working with the federal government or even at the state level.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
I feel that there should be an increase in the arrest and conviction of employers of undocumented workers. Are you familiar with the fact that the arrest rate for that has reduced 90% in the past 2 years?